Here are 5 reasons why you should play Endeavor Rite of Passage, an indie sci-fi RTS game made by a solo developer who has published it on Steam, featuring a single-player campaign made up of 21 missions and 3 additional game modes, not counting the tutorial. And all of this content making up Endeavor's early access release is my first reason why you should play this game. Because, aside from an entire single-player campaign, something you rarely see in indie titles, especially those that release into early access at first, there is also Skirmish vs AI on maps of up to 8 players, a tower defense mode, and a survival gameplay mode, meaning there is not just a lot here, but something for everyone who likes to play RTS games. Since I don't want to spoil the campaign for you or show too much of it, I'm just going to say that each mission has a special spin on it. Some elements are hidden, and there are almost always side objectives on the map. Even on the very first mission, you can find a special creep that can be hostile to you, or which you can find a way to use to your advantage. The story is about the fight between 2 human factions, but the third one is the aliens. In the Skirmish mode, you have a bunch of available maps going from 1v1 to 4v4, 3 difficulty levels for the AI, and you can edit your starting funds, starting position, teams, and what kind of a unique special unit will your chosen faction have access to. Only by completing the other game modes do you unlock more of these special units. The version I played only allowed 2 of the 3 factions to be played by the AI in the Skirmish mode, while you as the player can use all 3. The AI for this third faction is still a work in progress. The Tower Defense mode lets you pick any of the 3 factions to play with, and lands you on a specifically designed map which has a starting base you can use to expand and special pre-built locations for adding defensive towers. Your aim here is just to prevent the enemy from leaving the map, and you lose once a certain number of enemies manage to do so. There are 4 sections of the map to take control over, and this will help you to achieve the main objective. In the survival mode, the game gives you a much more scripted challenge, as you can only choose the faction to play with and everything else is already set up. You get a base that you have to defend, but also a side objective which forces you to split up your units. The enemy attack waves are progressively stronger, but my gripe here is that they love to bunch up units despite the game having one-click formations. The developer is aware of this and will work on making the AI actually use that feature. Do note, as I played a pre-release version to capture this gameplay, there will be bugs and probably different effects, which the developer has already fixed and changed for the early access version you will be playing. And this fast updating and fixing of the game based on player feedback is the second reason why you should play this game. It is not often that I announce a new indie and solo developed RTS game on my channel and only half a year later welcome its release on Steam, even if it is an early access version. And what separates the indie developer of Endeavor Rite of Passage from many I work with on a daily basis is that he changes and updates his game in just hours after getting feedback from me or other players. This quick response is probably part of the reason he has been able to finish and publish this version of his very interesting sci-fi RTS game before many other games I have shown you which have entire teams behind them. Granted, his production values are lower as the game has some very obvious missing elements. Hopefully, by selling lots of copies, the dev can reinvest into his game and add stuff like voice acting, characters, a cinematic or 2, more lore and background on the factions, and work out some other things that drag down the overall impression of the game. On the other hand, the features that make Endeavor stand out among other RTS games are the superpowers and superweapons. And these are my third reason why you should play this game, as in most game modes you can unlock these powers of destruction, healing or utility and use them each time their cooldown timer passes. Superweapons are a bit different, as for example the Endeavor faction can build and use an orbital cannon, while the other human faction can deploy a super shield. To deploy these superpowers, you have to collect intel points during battles, and you can see how many you have gathered at the top UI bar. These you can spend on unlocking powers at your HQ, to research upgrades for units, or unlock totally new and more powerful units. The powers themselves are divided into 3 sections and are unlocked in sequence, with each next one being more powerful but also costing more intel points. There are a dozen of these, and while some just reveal the fog of war, others let you drop a massive power generator from orbit or an even more massive meteor. There are repair nanites for healing, but also very destructible storms, carpet bombing, and more. All of these are available to each of the 3 factions you can play with in the Skirmish mode, and the fact that this solo indie developer managed to create 3 full factions with infantry, tanks, artillery, and air units makes this the 4th reason to play this game. Each of the factions have some very unique units, making them more asymmetrical than you might expect. The ones that are only unlocked once you gather enough intel points make each faction feel even more special, as they have some wild weapon systems. This is one part of the game that I feel like the developer needs to refine more, as a few of these units are really hard to make good use of in any game mode. The experimental units, which last for a limited time once deployed on the battlefield, are the most powerful ones, and some even have special weapons you can activate on them. The more game modes you play and finish, the more of these you will unlock to play with. Now, the 5th and final reason why I think you should play Endeavor are a bunch of elements this developer has implemented that you don't see in many similar RTS games. Of these, I consider one-click formations being most useful and incredibly well implemented, as you can set up square, line, or column formations just by using your middle mouse button and dragging the mouse. And another option, which goes perfectly with formations, is speed matching, which is activated by holding Ctrl and pressing the T key while you have a group of units selected. When recruiting units, you can hold the Shift key and order up batches of 5 units from any unit recruitment building, and if you want to repair buildings, the constructors will do that, but since they do it automatically, it is enough just to have them near to damaged buildings. When it comes to the camera, there are actually several angles you can watch the gameplay from. There are 2 keyboard keys, M and Home, which both modify the camera angle, and on top of that you can use the free view with the Alt key. Other extra features are red exploding barrels found in the campaign mission, a staple of RTS games if there ever was one. The fact that units can rank up and gain Veterancy, and you can set up waypoints and even patrols using the F key. There might even be more such options that I haven't even managed to figure out. All of this put together makes this a very interesting indie RTS game that you can all finally play, and the developer isn't even targeting a high price, despite all the content he has prepared for the early access version. I know some elements are not as refined as we all might want them to be, but I hope that you will have a few kind words of feedback and encouragement for this developer's very first game launch. The link to the Steam store page is in the description below, as are links to more similar games. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!